everyone, welcome to a watercolor tutorial. My name is Kenzie and we're going to be painting this Easter egg theme painting. So this one's a lot of fun. We're going to be using quite a few different techniques with the wet on wet and wet on dry technique, as well as trying to keep our depth within our Easter eggs. I hope that you have fun, and let's get started.
So this right here is my Winsor Newton watercolor paints that I have taken from the tube and put it inside this palette that I got off of Amazon. I have a tapping cloth right here. It's always good to have one. That way you don't have excess water on your page. I also have my two water cups right here. One I use for cool paints and one I use for my warmer paint colors. I also have right here my dryer. I like to use this to speed up the process between layers.
These are the brushes that I use. These are the silver black velvet. I have size 12, 4, and 8, and these are the round tip brushes. So these are also some other brushes that I like to use as well. If I have a large area like a landscape, I'll typically use this brush. And this oval brush that I have right here is really good for florals and other things as well. So I do like these two brushes. I don't use this kind of brush often, but it is good to have if I'm painting bricks or other details in my painting, so I do have this one handy. These two items I use all the time. This is called masking fluid. It acts as a cover, so wherever I put this masking fluid, let it dry, I can paint over top, can make sure my painting is 100% dry. I can scrape off the masking fluid and that area will be left untouched. So I use this a lot, but make sure to use an old brush because it does get kind of goopy and you'll end up with a broken brush. I also like to use bleed proof white. This is a very highly pigmented white, which will sit on top of any type of color. I'm using this painting as an example. I always like to have painter's tape on hand. I like to paint down my paintings. It's easier to one, film, and to also just keep everything from moving around and it getting a little messy. It also helps to protect your desk, which you'll see mine is very worn. So it definitely does help with that. Let's paint this really fun cart together. So what I'm going to do, what I've already done is I've already mixed up some colors in my palette from a previous painting that I'm going to use on this one. So what I have here is a little bit of a gray and sap green color, but what I want to do is mix a little bit of blue into it. So there's gray, blue, a hint of sap green, not really much. Add a little bit more gray into here. And this is going to be the color that I use for our wagon. So I'm going to come in and put down this color. I started from the middle and I'm instantly regretting it. I really wish I would have started on the side and worked my way over. That's okay. I'm just going to drag my colors. So we're using the wet on dry technique. This is when we are applying wet paint to a dry surface. This is when you get more bright and vibrant colors, more details. Okay, I am going to come in while some parts are still wet and just add some lines and let that blend out at different points. Like over here, it's still really wet. I'm just going to do some streaks. Here and kind of just let it blend and do its thing with the wet on wet technique. When you apply wet paint to a wet surface, that creates soft blends and things that appear in the distance as well. Okay, I'm pretty happy with how that looks. I do realize I painted right here, not the rest, which is fine. I'm going to let this dry before I do anything else. I'm going to come around and do the outside with a nice brown color that I already have mixed in here. So again, I just mixed some gray with some light brown. And I'm going to come around my edge and do the frame of my egg stand. Although summer is my favorite time of year, it used to be winter until I moved to Canada, and then I realized how cold winter can actually be. But spring is my favorite season to paint. I love painting all things spring. I love the colors. I love painting all things kind of Easter related. I love doing Easter eggs and little bunnies and fun things like that. And I particularly like the colors, and I like how soft and cute everything is. I always struggle with the content that I'm going to use because I just have so many things that I want to paint, and yeah, I feel like it's a struggle trying to pick something. Okay, so I have this part down. You'll notice I didn't do the top because I'm going to do a different color. I didn't do these rods back here either because that's going to be a little bit of a darker color. So I'm going to let these dry for now. I'm going to use this color for my wheels. Let me come around. And you'll notice how my ink mark lines have not gone all the way around my wheel. And that is because we are going to do some grass down there that goes into our wheel. I want to go around. Got a nice flower right there. I'm going to try and not get my brown in. Try and stay in the lines. I'm moving fast, so I feel like I'm kind of being a little sloppy right now. There we go. Going all the way around. Okay, I can mix up a little bit more gray, and I can apply. And what I can do here as well is I don't have to paint all of it brown either. I can use white space, which is leaving some blank space in your paper. This part really helps with just depth and dimension. So I can come in and just leave some white around. And then if I want to do a second layer, I can cover it, and then the part that I'm painting right now will automatically be darker. So it just helps give it a little bit depth. And then the part that I didn't paint, that will be lighter. Okay, so with my brown, I am going to mix up the brown into my blue a bit. And I'm going to come around and do my lower part, or the bumper. I come underneath in here where the wheels are. I am trying to be consistent with my light and darks. Coming all the way around. And then I'm going to bring it all the way over here. So you can see, I'm not sure about the video, but in person you can see this nice light blue tint that I have. So I'm going to bring it all the way over, trying not to go over my lines too much. Coming in here. So because I already had that blue painted, it's going to be naturally darker than the rest of it, which is fine. Okay, so with my darker beams, I'm going to come in. This is still not dark enough. Come in with a little bit more black. Just that way, it just looks like it's just more in the distance. Bringing it around to my egg. Coming around here and filling out the back post, bringing it down towards the flowers. Okay, cool. So I can at this point come in and just add a little bit more detail. At this point, I don't really want to. I just kind of want to get all my first layers down first, and then I will get a little bit more creative with my wet on dry technique. So as of right now, I'm going to mix a little bit more of a darker brown. I'm going to do the inner part. I'm doing it darker, so again, it just kind of helps create a consistent look here with the wagon, that it's further behind and in the distance. So I'm coming around my eggs ever so carefully. So this part, you need to be careful. So I'm doing this part first because I'm pretty good at keeping a steady hand. If you feel nervous at all about your light colors coming into your dark and kind of messing with that area, maybe do this part after you've completed your eggs. Okay, so that's the first layers down over here. So what I can now go and do is jump around my eggs. You don't have to do the exact same design that I'm doing. You can definitely get creative on your own. I do have this masking fluid right here that I'm going to be putting down. I talked about it in the intro. So basically masking fluid acts as a barrier between the page and the paint. I want to do some pretty cool designs. So what I'm going to do is grab an old brush. So I'm going to grab the tip of my brush and I'm just going to do little polka dots on one. So you got to leave it a couple of minutes to make sure it's completely dried. If you don't have masking fluid, you can still do other things. Like for example, if you want to do polka dots, you can just go really light, paint over top. What else can we do here? Maybe do some zigzags, do the classic zigzags. So grab my brush, just gonna dampen it just a little bit so it's nice and firm. I want this to be very dainty, so I'm doing very light brush strokes. Again, I'm just using a very old brush because the masking fluid has a record of destroying my brushes. So make sure when you're done, clean it off really well. So I'm gonna let these dry. I cannot paint over top. Okay, so for the eggs, I'm gonna be using my Prima Marketing palette, and I'm gonna use this nice pretty blue that they have. If you don't have this palette, you can just mix up any type of purple that you may have. So I want this back one to be purple. I just love how this Prima Marketing is just so creamy, and it really helps with the pastel vibe that I want to go for in this painting. So when you're painting with watercolor, we recommend that you don't paint with white. We find that it just dulls your artwork. So if you want a creamier look, you can definitely just add some white. It looks good. So I just did the technique there where I got rid of everything on my brush, tapped my napkin, and it was just water, a damp brush, and I lifted it. So now I have a nice highlight in my middle. So the next thing that I want to do is pick a different color. So I'm going to use a really nice pink that I already have mixed up from this palette. I want to do this back one pink, moving around fairly quickly, and you'll see I'm able to paint now next to my brown because my brown has now had enough time to dry. If this was still wet, it would just explode into everything, which we don't like. I'm going to come into my middle of the egg again, do that technique where I'm lifting with a damp brush. I'm going to come around towards the bottom of my egg and my side here and just kind of just add a little bit of shadow. That pink is very bright, so I'm just going to use some water here to spread this out and make it not so pigmented. The bottom part, add a little bit more darkness to it. So it just gives it a nice curve. What other color? Maybe a nice orange. I'm gonna use this orangey color that I have. This one looks really pretty. This one's probably dry. So now I very carefully can paint on this. Now, one thing I didn't think about here is my pink is still probably wet. So I am going to be very careful to not have these explode into each other. Kind of blowing it to dry it. I did not think about that. So try to jump around so that way your colors aren't doing that wet on wet technique where it expands into each other. Okay, I'm going to use my dryer right now just to dry it, just to make sure that they don't go into each other. Okay, I'm going to use this mint color that I have. I don't think I've actually ever used this in a painting before. I'm excited about it. I'm going to come with this mint color and do it over here, going around my little flower that I have. Just doing the same things that I've been doing over and over. Then rid of everything on my brush, scooping up the middle part so it looks like we have a nice highlight on our egg. I'm trying to think what other colors I can do here. I already have purple, I have pink, maybe this nice creamy blue for the back. Yeah, this is a nice blue color. I'll do this color. This is the creative part. You guys do not have to pick the same designs that I have. Have fun with this. I'm going to scoop. This is pretty watery, so I'm going to come in and just add a little bit more darkness. Contrast towards the bottom. Scoop right in here. Okay, I'm going to dry this egg so I can move on to my final egg. Okay, so for this last egg, I'm gonna leave it white, and I'm gonna do some nice pretty flowers. So I'm gonna come in and freehand some petals. So I'm just doing typical petal shapes on my egg here. I'm gonna do different colors, the ones that I've already done. Using the blues. Coming in with my purple now. Maybe with the purple one, we can just do some, maybe 3 petals. There we go. So it looks like it's coming off the edge. Use this orange color, doing some florals, not filling them in all the way, maybe just doing some that are kind of cut off. What other color did we do? We did a mint. Maybe just do some of the petals over here as well. And then we can grab some yellow, and we can do the centers with some yellow. Ooh, that was a lot of water. Gotta scoop that up a little bit. Coming around in here, in here, in here, and in here. I'm gonna dry this so I can just do some shading really quick. I'm also gonna come around with some gray and just kind of shadow around with a nice gray color at different points as well. This will just kind of, again, help with the curvature of this piece. So you don't want it to look flat, especially because the other ones have some depth. What we could do as well, we could have also just did this at the beginning. We don't have to do this towards the end when everything's already painted, but I didn't think about it until after I had my colors down. I was like, oh, these look a little flat. Okay, so now I just put some gray down. Feeling a lot better about this egg. I'm gonna dry this real quick. So using some sap green, I'm just gonna come in and just use some leaf petals, do some leaf shapes around, and call that one a day. So this is all dry, so now I can come in and use the tip of my finger, and you'll see here that wherever I put that masking fluid, it has stayed white. So now I have a very fun design on my eggs. Okay, so what I want to do is come around on my flowers. I'm gonna pick some nice pinky colors that I have going right here. So now I can come around and do the rest of the flowers. So I'm gonna choose a really pretty pink color, and I'm going to start laying down my colors. I can also leave what we call white space, which is just gaps in towards the middle. You'll see as it dries, you'll see the differences between the white space and the dry space that I have there. I'm going to do lots of these little petals, different shades of the pink. You guys, I'm sorry if in this video you hear lots of banging. My neighbor, we share a wall, and it's pretty loud sometimes, and it's hard to find times during the day where we don't hear each other. And unfortunately right now, they're pretty active. So I mixed a little bit of purple in with a little bit of pink. I'm going to come around and fill in these the same way that I did before, where I just kind of like left some gaps inside the petals. I'm going to come and use this pretty color around here. Using a little bit more pink on this one. A nice vibrant pink. I'm going to use some water here just to kind of lift up different spots. I'm trying to think. Should we do some nice blue in here? Oh, I like that. That's very pretty. So I just added a little bit of blue into my pink. It did make it a little bit more purplish, if purplish was a word. I'm gonna use a little bit more pink for this one. And there is a cute little flower. You can just see the 3 petals right here. So you guys can have fun with this as well. If you're feeling like you want to add like way more florals, go ahead and paint some. You can freehand, you don't have to just stay within the sketches, but I just sketched some for you guys to kind of help with placement. So with a nice sap green, there is a little bit of gray in my green that's already on my palette. I can come around and do some nice brush strokes for my leaves and my stems. Just doing some petal shapes. So these are kind of like little C shapes. So I do a C shape this way, one way, and then I follow and do the C shape on the other way. So I'm going to do, for example, let's do a stem right here. I'll do a C shape, then I'll do another C shape that goes the opposite direction. Do a stem coming from these flowers, the very tip of my brush, C shape, C shape, C shape. Do another one over here coming from my wagon. Okay, so what I want to do now is just kind of come and finish the bottoms. So with this green, I'm going to do some flicks on certain areas to kind of represent the grass. So coming around, doing different flicks, kind of leaning more towards the side of my brush, doing some long and some short, coming inside my wagon just a little bit in between, trying to make it look firm and full all the way around. And then I can come in and I can mix different shades. Maybe this blue that I used, I can bring and pull that in. I said maybe as if I wasn't already intentionally going to do that. I added some blue into my green, and then I'm just doing some flicks. So now you'll see I have some depth to this, some long stems, some shorter grass. With my blue green, I can maybe even just add a little bit of some greenery over in this side. Maybe just bring it up a little bit taller over here. Bringing it into my wheels just a little bit more. So now you'll see why I cut it off and didn't go all the way around with my blue. Just helped it make it a little bit more natural. Just doing some nice stems. Okay, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Okay, so now I can move on to the center. So I'm gonna use my cadmium yellow. It's a little bit too red right now. So I'm gonna come in and bring it into my watercolor palette, add some water so it's not quite too bright and vibrant. And I'm gonna touch around. I just do the dotting technique for my centers here. I'm just dotting in a circular motion. That way I can also just leave a little bit of white space in my center so it just doesn't look like a big blob. see if I got any more flowers. No, I can even add a little bit of cadmium red as well. And I can touch around different spots of this yellow, and this will just kind of help give it that much more of a pop of a color. Okay, so I'm gonna dry this so I can move on to the next. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the wet on dry portion, and this is when we're gonna be adding the last little bit of details to our painting, just to kind of help make it just that much more realistic. So this is the part where a lot of people that I teach, they don't really want to do. They think that what they have is really pretty, which most 99.9% time it really is. It looks great, but it also just looks a little flat. So once you start adding a little bit more detail, you'll start to find that you'll gain a little bit more confidence and you'll just like painting that much more. So this is when we're going to be adding more layers. So I just mixed up a little bit of a darker pink, and I'm going to come into my centers here and just add some nice flicks. So this is why it's important with watercolor to always start really light. If you don't start light, you're going to find that it's really hard for you to layer, which is the whole point of watercolor. It's very different when you're painting with acrylic. You can just put your highlights on after you've already got down all your colors and it looks great. With watercolor, you really can't do that. So I'm coming around and I'm just going to be adding some nice flicks into my centers just to help bring my petals to life. Coming around. Okay. Oh, I don't think I did this one. Just doing some flicks from my center, filling around the edges as well to just really help these flowers. Okay, I like how this is looking. So the only thing that I really want to do is just add a few little details to my eggs. So I'm going to come around, maybe just do some little polka dots on this one with a more vibrant purple, just a couple. I don't want to make it seem too crazy. That one kind of came out a little bit. I'm gonna blend this out. Okay, the last little bit I want to do is add my second layers to my wagon. So for example, I want to come around and just do some lines and flicks around my wagon, especially around the center of it. Coming in here, just adding, giving it a nice wood effect. I'm going to come around the bottom of my eggs too and just add a little bit more shadow in here, just right underneath it. Trying to think, up top, I'm going to add a little bit more of a heavier line to kind of separate these two. I'm going to grab more of a wash, a lighter color than what I've already been using. I'm going to do like little circles, like the little knots that we have in our wood. And little imperfections that it has. Adding those. And then for the blue part, I'm going to come in, kind of lost the blue color with the green earlier, adding a little bit more indigo. So I can do literally the same thing. So I'm going to come in and just do some nice lines all the way across using the very side of my brush. Doing that right in here as well. And then with a more gray color, I can come around the crease right in here. And I'm not doing perfectly straight lines because wood is certainly not perfect. Add some little nails as if it's been nailed in, little circles for it. Making some lines, more lines for my wagon underneath. In between my wheels. If you want to go a little bit darker, let it dry, and then you can come in and just add a little bit more of a darker color right here to separate those. You can also come in with a darker blue, and once again, just put a little bit more emphasis to separate the boards right in here. Maybe with more of a wash of a color, you can just add a little bit more of the imperfections. So you might find that you really like doing these final detail steps. But again, you have to make sure that everything is dry. Otherwise, you'll just get that wet out wet technique where everything's just kind of blending and you kind of just miss the mark. Okay, so what I was talking about earlier in the video, by leaving this white space, I can go in with the same color. So for example, this brown that I'm putting over top my wheel, the first layer of brown, it just darkens, whereas the white, it gets darker, but not as dark as that first layer, which is called the glazing technique. This is a really cool technique that I like to use. So I'm going to fill in those white space. I'm using the exact same brown on both, but it just really helps give it a cool effect. So I'm feeling really happy about this. I hope that you guys have enjoyed the video, learned some fun techniques. Happy painting, friends.